Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. My name is Lisa from Worldwide Awake Business Network, and we're doing an interview this morning on the very important subject of depression in 2023. And I'm joined by Katie Van Heek, a psychotherapist from Health Intent. So before we get started, Katie, is it okay if we go through some fun icebreakers?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Fantastic. I like to put my timer on, which I have not got ready. So let me put my timer on. We'll see how quick we can do it. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Tea or coffee?
Oh, tea.
Early bird or
night?
Early bird or night owl?
I'd have to say night owl.
PC or Mac?
PC.
Money or fame?
Money.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Cautious or adventurous?
Adventurous.
Call or text?
Text.
Truth or dare?
Truth.
47 seconds and 47.12 seconds. Well done. So, Katie, in a world constantly evolving, so too are our challenges, and mental health remains a paramount concern. And what we said when we promoted this event was that we were going to start to explore the ever-changing landscape of depression in the year of 2023. And that our goal was to foster a deeper understanding of depression, sharing coping strategies and highlighting the importance of support systems and self-care. It would be lovely if you could just tell us firstly a little bit about yourself, your family, where you were brought up. Is that okay?
Absolutely. So I'm a Perth girl, born and raised. Grew up in Karrinyup and then Kingsley, so north of the river. But spent a lot of my childhood in Fremantle, playing down that way too. So, yeah, I live on 10 acres now out in Lower Chittering Valley. It's beautiful up here, with my husband of 25 years and two of my three sons.
Beautiful. So outside of work, how do you like to spend your free time?
Look, I love to be on this property. It offers something to do every day, and I'm an avid learner, so I believe in lifelong learning. I don't think that you can ever learn enough while you're alive. I think the quote is live like you'll die tomorrow, learn like you'll live forever. So yeah, absolutely love to dig my fingers into new topics and discussions, and then get out on the garden and the property and spend time with my puppies and my kids as well.
Beautiful. I've known you for about 8 years, and I don't think that there's a time that you have not been studying in the time that I've known you. Absolutely
probably
incredible.
Very true.
Yes, yeah. Are there any hobbies or activities that you're particularly passionate about?
I love being outside. I love hiking. I haven't done enough of it in the last few years, but I was really disappointed to miss the hike that you did with Debbie the other day, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. So got to get my kit out and dust it off.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, Debbie is a perfect person to be leading us on our next hike. Could you explain to us the role of somatic psychotherapy? Because that is basically what you're qualified as, isn't it?
Yes. So somatic psychotherapy is a pairing of top-down talk therapy and bottom-up body-based therapy. And I'm a registered counsellor with a psychology degree. So I have a broad range of training to help me look at both the brain and the body. And somatic psychotherapy, the goal is to repair fractures between the thinking brain and the feeling brain, and the thoughts and the feelings in the body.
So how does that differ exactly from traditional talk therapy approaches? Like, why would somebody want to go and see a somatic psychotherapist rather than a psychologist?
Traditional talk therapy puts all of the onus on the brain being in charge, on the thoughts being in charge, and that's okay for some people. But for others, they need to go beyond the thinking side of things because the trauma is actually stored in the body. So our bodies are made up of 7 different systems. We've got energetic systems, we've got spiritual systems, we've got nervous system, we've got our brain, we've got our feelings, our emotional side, and somatic psychotherapy says that all of those systems are important, not just our cognitive function.
Wouldn't it be true to say that my understanding was that everything is stored somewhere in the body? There's nothing that just stays in the brain.
The brain is really clever, and our brain is, so when we're developing as a child, our frontal cortex isn't there. So we're using the back part of our brain. We're using our felt sense, if you like. And so in early childhood, we're actually storing things in the nervous system and in the brain and in the fascia and the tissue of the body. And we don't have our cognitive ability. So when it's early trauma that we're working with, there's no words for it. And people often express that and say, I don't know what I feel, or I can't put words to how I'm feeling, because it's so early, it's pre-verbal.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know about not having that. Did you say caudal frontex?
The frontal cortex, yeah.
Frontal
so we develop
cortex.
we develop that as we grow.
Can you tell us, Katie, a lot of people talk about clinical depression, what it actually is?
Yeah, sure. So clinical depression is another word for diagnosed mood disorder, and major mood disorder or major depression is what I would consider clinical depression. Depression is a spectrum. So it can start with feeling sad, and then it can move into a diagnosable disorder, which has certain caveats that it needs to fulfill. So it has to persist over time. It has to impact on multiple spaces within a person's capacity to function. And it has to be something that reduces their life enjoyment.
Okay. If anybody's got any questions that has joined us today, please just pop them in the chat, and then I'll go through and ask Katie your questions at the end. In the context of our constantly evolving world in 2023, I was born in 64, last of the baby boomers, and I cannot remember a time that has been as stressful as the last few years. So I think it's really, really significant in 2023. What are some common triggers or stresses that may lead to clinical depression, do you believe, and through your experience and expertise in individuals today?
Wow, that's a massive question.
That is a very massive question, yes.
So I think the thing is you're describing a time with your lifespan and absolutely mine as well, where we didn't have massive struggles that potentially your parents and my parents had, where we're post-war. So we're post that, and the kids that have grown up, and myself included, we've been in a time of abundance. We've been in a time of personal growth, and we're at the top of pyramid, if you like, in that we've had a lot of our safety and our security maintained. So we've been able to go out and we've been able to enjoy work, and we've been able to enjoy self-evolution. But with the last few years, some of us making the choices that we've had that security ripped out from underneath us. Especially when it comes to job security and housing security. And we're seeing massive amounts of homelessness because of housing prices and things like that. So it's not only our community, it's the wider community that at the moment, the impact to us, we're really starting to have those oppressive systemic things that maybe people that were alive during the war experienced. So we're unprepared for it, which is, I think, also creating a lot of dis-ease in our mental space.
Katie, what are some practical self-help strategies that individuals can apply to manage mild to moderate depression symptoms on their own, or to even support their loved ones who might be struggling?
Yeah, good question. And when we're talking about mild and moderate depression, we're talking about starting to see some of those symptoms that would lead into a diagnosis. So things like not maintaining healthcare, not maintaining their self-care, sorry, and maybe isolating from things, not showing up as much as they would, or like you mentioned to me this morning, I looked a little flat. And I was able to say to you, look, I'm exhausted because my husband's just post-surgery and, you know, there's been a lot to do and early morning wake-ups and things like that. So for me, I can regulate that because I know it's a short-term thing. As people move into a depressed state, they stop to recognize that they can regulate those things. So little things, I know that if somebody is moving into moderate depression, things like just having a shower can be the most massive impact to their day, or making their bed or getting their laundry done. Those little bits of self-efficacy that prove to them that they can actually do things in the world and they can support themselves. Definitely diet and exercise factor. We've seen it's in the evidence body that says that diet and exercise supports our mood when it comes to depression. So eating right, making sure that they are eating or they're not overeating, making sure that they're getting outside. We all know, I'm sure everybody in this room knows about getting into nature and grounding and being around all of those beautiful negative ions that you might get down the beach or in a forest. So yeah, there are little things that we can do to support ourselves and support our loved ones in those first stages of depression.
Wow, that's really interesting. And in this group, we definitely have a lot of people that are really in touch with how important it is to do that grounding as such. But there will be people that are watching this that aren't familiar with those techniques. So I think that that's absolute gold. One thing that I found really interesting when I went to one of my first talks on depression, and it was a very long time ago, probably about 20 years, and it always stuck with me. I thought it was a really good point that the person giving the talk made. And what they said was that so many people would say to people with depression, just pull your socks up. Why don't you just pull your socks up? And what she said was, they're not capable of bending over to be able to pull their socks up. And that was just a very, very powerful thing that I heard. So I think you making the point that even having a shower can be difficult for somebody that's clinically depressed is really important. Katie, how can somatic psychotherapy techniques be integrated into somebody's daily routine to help them regulate their emotions and to reduce the impact of what they're going through?
So with somatic technique, it's important to be connecting the body and the brain. So mindfulness exercises where you can take the time to really put yourself into an experience, even if it's something like vacuuming the carpet or washing the dishes or having a shower, where you're connecting what you're feeling and thinking with what you're sensing in your body. So let's take having a shower, for instance. When you get into the water, feeling that temperature on your skin and feeling where the water touches your body. And when you're applying your soap, really like moving your hands slowly up your body, saying, this is my body. Hello, body. How are you, body? And connecting the felt sense with the body, with the thoughts. How am I feeling about my body today? How am I enjoying this temperature water? Do I want to change it? We're giving our brains the capacity to really have choice. And that's important when we're talking about any mental illness or somebody's worsening health.
Do you think that's a lot more difficult to do today with social media like it is? I know it's one thing that I have to remind myself because my mind's always going a million miles an hour, and I wasn't even brought up with all of the devices that we have now. And it is, I find, even for myself, challenging to have that mindfulness to eat, as an example, with intent rather than sitting at my computer eating or walking and eating. So in 2023 or even more recently, those things, would you say, are more challenging as well?
Right now, we're more connected than we've ever been, and some of us are more alone than we've ever been. So and I do it myself sometimes when I'm really tired or when I'm stressed, I'll disconnect and I'll scroll through Facebook or through, I don't use TikTok, but I might scroll through something else that's on or play a game on my phone, and it takes me out of reality. And in short bursts, that's great. But when we get stuck in that and we've lost 2 or 3 hours, what we're doing is we're literally disconnecting from everything around us. So not only ourselves, but we're disconnecting from our loved ones and our workplaces and other people that might be relying on us or other people that could be helping us. So I think in this day and age of technology, whilst we do a lot online, we learn online, we connect businesses online, we shop online, you don't really have to leave your house if you don't want to. It can be a difficulty with somebody that has suffered depression and that has decided to isolate.
Absolutely.
But it's something that I think we all need to monitor in our lives. Is this adding value or is it taking value from my life?
Yeah, and it becomes a addiction, doesn't it? If we're totally honest, it becomes an addiction. And I know
Can
from
be.
experience that marriages break down because of these addictions to mobile devices as well. Depression often carries a stigma that can hinder people from seeking help. What steps can individuals take to break the stigma, both for themselves and within their communities, Katie?
I think this is a great question because, like I said before, depression is a sliding scale. And if somebody is a little bit depressed and they need some support, then what they don't want is for people to come in and say, toughen up, or all of those, negative things that we've heard in the past. Just get over it. You'll be fine. Think happy thoughts. I know that this might be unpopular, but we can't always think our way out of things. Sometimes we need to actually stop and say, I need some support here and I need some help and I need to do more than just minimize how I'm feeling and think I'll be happy today. There's a lot to be said for positive affirmations, but they're not a one-stop shop and they're not a magic pill. So being able to talk to somebody, if somebody says to you, I'm feeling a little depressed, the best way you can approach them is with curiosity. What does that mean to you? What does depression look like in your world? Have you felt this before? What's worked for you in the past? Is there anything I can do to support you right now? Maybe connect with services if that's become a difficulty. Are there practical things I can do, like drop your kids to school just to give you a little bit of extra time in the morning to be with yourself, or make those appointments that you've been putting off because you're worried about everybody else? So I think that the word depression can hold that stigma because people are scared that it would be seen negatively in the discussion. So when we can just come from curiosity and not try and diagnose the person and not try and fix them, and just say, what does that feel like for you right now? Then we can offer them a place of compassion and a place to open up if that's what they choose.
I can remember my chiropractor telling me many years ago now, and I can't remember the statistics, but I can remember being really shocked, and it could be as high as half. So let's just go with half, but I can't remember exactly, of the people going to see him were on antidepressants. So that being the case, that a very high percentage of people that are rightly or incorrectly being diagnosed medication, it would stand to reason that if you're expressing to somebody that you're going through a stage where you're feeling depressed, that person very likely has been there or could currently be there themselves, because often it's something that's masked as well, and we wouldn't necessarily know that somebody's feeling depressed.
Absolutely. You know, we all put on a different face. And if you scroll through my Facebook feed, you see my Facebook life, right? If you scroll through your Insta feed, you see your Insta life. You don't see the whole person. It's not until we sit down and we connect with somebody that we actually get to see all of the facets that are going on for them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is, wow, that's a whole other subject. So I won't even start on that. Katie, can you share insights on the importance of building and maintaining a strong support system for those that are dealing with depression, and how individuals can possibly cultivate such networks? I'm very fortunate to be within those networks, but there's going to be people watching that are feeling lonely, feeling depressed, and don't have those networks.
Absolutely. And I think we live in a world where people are less likely to connect with strangers. So they reach out firstly to family, to networks of friends that they may have. And if those networks aren't prepared to support them at that time, and let's face it, people have busy lives, they may be going through something themselves, they may not be robust enough to actually be a support person for that person at the moment. So I think it's important for us to remember that whilst we're healthy, that we make those connections, that we look for different ways to connect with different people, whether it be through online groups such as Worldwide Business Network, or whether it be as a spiritual practice, whatever that is for you, or even a sport or a hobby group that people can actually connect while they feel well, so that when they are unwell or becoming unwell, they've got those networks set up. We're social creatures. We're born for connection. We are wired for connection with others. We're not meant to be islands. So when we are starting to feel that we're losing touch with reality, or we're starting to feel like we want to isolate, they're the times when we really do need to be reaching out and saying, look, I don't know what's going on for me, but do you mind just having a phone call today? Or, you know, if somebody's expressed that they've been feeling down, or you can see that their demeanor has changed, just a text message if you don't have regular phone calls with that person, just checking in. I know, Lisa, you do that for me, and I really appreciate seeing those little messages come into my inbox that says, are you okay? Just checking in. So we could be
Even
doing
at
more
5
of that.
a.m. in the morning.
I don't always look at them at 5 a.m, but when I wake up and open my phone, then they're there waiting for me. So
You're very welcome.
I'll have to teach you how to schedule messages.
Can you schedule messages on Messenger?
I think so.
Oh my goodness. I'm learning 2 new things today. Fantastic. And I loved what you said there about being, well, 2 things. I love the word robust, because it's not a word you hear very often. So I just think it's a fantastic word. But also, it's almost like an insurance policy, isn't it? And building those connections when you feel well. I mean, that's just absolutely wonderful. I think that's great advice. Are there any specific lifestyle changes, such as diet, exercise, or sleep patterns, speaking of getting up early, that can significantly impact an individual's resilience against depression in our fast-paced world?
Absolutely. Sleep is so important, right? Any sleep deprivation really breaks down your capacity to connect with yourself, with others. It breaks down your capacity to cope, or even to regulate your own emotions. So I like light therapy for calibrating circadian rhythms and sleep patterns. It can be a really helpful tool, and you can do it naturally if you're an early riser like you, Lisa, by going outside as soon as you wake up, as soon as the sun's coming up, and getting that cool blue light, that aura that comes off the sunrise. And then alternatively in the evening, going outside and watching the sun set and getting those amber light rays. And what that's doing is the blue light is increasing serotonin in the brain. So it's bringing in those happy feelings, it's increasing our dopamine, it's really raising our spirits, and it's motivating our body to be awake and be alive. So it starts to activate the digestive system and a whole bunch of other things. when we're using amber light, we're also increasing serotonin, but in the evening, it's converted to melatonin, and that's the brain chemical that's going to help us sleep. So if we can do those two things, even if it's artificial, so even if you're using a blue light on your phone in the morning and maybe a Himalayan salt lamp, amber glow in the evening, if you're not rising early enough or you're not out to see the sunrise, thinking about that and really re-establishing good sleep patterns, not pushing past the point of tired. It all comes down to management and balance of your life and what you've got going on, obviously, but that's one thing that we can do. And I've already mentioned getting out in nature, doing some stretching, doing some exercise, maybe putting a daily practice in place. It doesn't have to be long. It could be 5 minutes so that it fits into your busy schedule where you just spend 5 minutes with yourself.
Wow, I didn't know a lot of that stuff. I didn't understand about the circadian rhythm and the benefits of a sunrise and a sunset, although they were one of our icebreaker questions. I really didn't know all of that. So that is absolutely insightful. And I'm sure a lot of people will really benefit from knowing that information. And it's a really good reminder that when I do rise, to go for that walk and not sit in front of my PC, which is really easy to do. Before we see if we've got any questions in the chat and we wrap up, what message of hope and empowerment would you like to convey to anyone who's listening to navigate this complex terrain of depression in 23? And also, Katie, what resources or support can they access to further their journey towards mental wellness?
Good questions. So as far as messages of hope, I would say, like any mental illness, it's common. Statistics are in the general population that 1 in 5 people will be experiencing a diagnosable mental illness at any point in time. So you're not alone. If you have these feelings, you're definitely not alone. Probably somebody that's close to you has felt this before and may be able to support you or connect you with things that can help you. And it's transient. So depression doesn't have to be all of you. It can just be something that you are going through and something that you're working through. It doesn't have to be who you are. So by reaching out and getting those tools and remembering that, and I say that as a person that's not living with depression at the moment, so I recognize how difficult that would be for somebody clinically depressed. I'm not minimizing their experience at all, but it is transient and you can recover from this, and people often do and go on and have beautiful lives. And as far as resources, we've got access to so many online resources these days. If people are worried about connecting to family and friends, we've got online chats, we've got call lines. Beyond Blue has a few different apps that you can download. If people's depression are moving into suicidal thoughts, there's Beyond Now, which is an app where we can do safety planning with a person. I'm happy to have conversations with people if they'd like to about more of those resources. You can take a mental health first aid class or have a 15-minute phone call with me free of charge, and we can talk about what your specific needs are.
Wonderful. And you actually run those mental health first aid courses too, don't you, Katie?
I do. I run them for the adult population and I run them for the older adult population. So plus 65 have their own unique mental health issues. So I do run a course if people are working with the elderly and aged to look specifically at what support can be given in that cohort, because it is different to the general, say 18 to 64-year-olds.
Okay, that's wonderful. So what I'll do is actually, with your permission, pop that link into the YouTube channel as well, so that people can have direct access to you through the MHFA, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. So to the best of my knowledge, there's just one question in the chat, and I won't say who it is for privacy. Actually, there's 2 questions now. So the first question is, one of the people on this Zoom have a friend whose daughter is only 7 years old and has been diagnosed with ADHD. she does not want to put her daughter onto medication, what would you suggest that she do?
Wow. Look, I'm not going to demean medication. I've had this struggle in my own life, when to medicate, when not to medicate. I believe that our medication can be a good stopgap to give people the opportunity to take a break from their illness or from symptoms of illness, and then get some more supports in place. I personally don't believe in long-term medication, but what is long-term to one person is different from what's long-term for another. I would say as a parent, you have to follow your own gut. It's going to be very individual depending on what the child's needs are, what the child's symptoms are, what their coping strategies are, what they're being asked to do on a daily basis. When one of my children was in a public school, what we had to do to support them was very different from when they were at home. So there's so many facets to that question. I would just say, don't be afraid of medication as a rule. If you choose to use it with your heart open and the best intention to say this will help in the short term whilst we get some more supports, or look at those other supports. And there's so many for ADHD at the moment. The
So if
thing is,
somebody
I'll just finish by saying a lot of, I'm not going to say diagnosis is a bad thing, but a lot of our diagnosis can come back to original trauma. So there can be other supports that can be put in place to work with the original trauma, even of a young person and their parents, without going down a diagnosis route.
So
but again, my caveat is, and because this is going on YouTube, I want to be very clear that I'm not against diagnosis. I'm not against medication. I think it's very individual for the person.
So for somebody with a 7-year-old child that wanted to explore other routes, where would they start? Like if they started Googling, who would you suggest they go see? Like a naturopath or?
Again, it's hard to contextualize only with an age. With ADHD, it really comes down to the behaviours and what they're wanting to look at. They can look at diet. They can look at toxic lifestyles. I would also start looking at where the parents are at emotionally and physically as far as their supporting capacity for that child. So it's a holistic approach. If that person wants to reach out and have a conversation with me and give me some more context, I'm absolutely happy to do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Another question is there a correlation between an unhealthy gut and depression?
I would say 100% yes.
Okay.
Like I said before, we have 7 different systems that all work together, and when one is out of alignment or out of integrity, it has the capacity to impact others. I'm a big believer in the gut brain. I'm a big believer that if we have poor digestive health and poor microbiome, that we do have poor psychology. So yes, I would say resounding yes. And I can offer lots of evidence to support that if anybody wants further information.
Yeah, it's not something that we're generally, unless you're blessed to be brought up with parents that are really attuned to a lifestyle that cuts out a lot of the preservatives and the GMOs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not something you're actually aware of. I know for myself, being brought up in the 60s and 70s, there was white bread and cakes and cordial, a lot of sugar. Used to make toffees. Like that was kind of my life. And nobody ever told me any different. So, and of course, we understand now that goes through the genes as well.
And you have to remember that the ingredients we're using now are not the ingredients that your parents were using. So there's you can have bread and you can have sugar if they're limited and the product's not disrupted in its own genetic form. Look, I live by a rule of balance. If I'm going to eat something, I'm eating it knowing that I'm going to enjoy it. It may not be the healthiest thing for me, and I won't be eating it every day. But if I get joy from something, then I'm not going to deny myself joy. So I'm very much around your intention. Intention is everything. If no matter what you're putting in your body, if your intention is to love yourself, then that changes the way that we digest those foods anyway. If you're eating to suppress emotion, or if you're eating because you're tired, or if you're eating because you don't have a connection between your digestion and your thought process or your emotional process anymore, that's when we come unstuck.
Absolutely. Katie, is there anything you'd like to wrap up with?
I just to say that I think it's important to have these conversations. I think it's important to be talking and asking people, are they okay? It's important to be connecting and not sitting back and waiting to either need help or to be asked for help. Take that first step and just reach out and have those beautiful connections while you are well, because that's where the joy is found in life, right?
Absolutely. Are you happy for me to put your contact details on the channel?
I'll give you my work number because I don't know if you have that one, but yes.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please do subscribe to our channel, Worldwide Awake Business Network. Really appreciate you joining us today, Katie. We have some absolutely phenomenal members in our group. If you want to learn more about our group, have a look at the pinned post. And we've got a lot more interviews like this one. So thank you for watching.
Thanks, Lisa.